The old days of internet animation. While many of these old series may not look like much now, and they really weren't that good at all, they were great back in the day. Though out of the many little comedic animated series you'd find on Newgrounds and YouTube later on, there was one in particular that definitely stood out, Eddsworld. Spanning across comics, animations, and even flash games, this series has become so prolific that a whole generation of voice actors, artists, and animators have been inspired by it. At its peak, the Eddsworld channel on YouTube was not only the most subscribed to comedy channel of the UK, but Eddsworld itself was the fourth most viewed comedian in the entire country. Of course, hearing all of this, it's pretty obvious that with the series having that much exposure, Eddsworld had developed quite the hearty fandom, one that is actually one of the oldest I've covered on the channel. So with the fandom being that old, there comes a history of fantastic highs and devastating lows. Hello everyone, this is the RPG Monger, and welcome to the Fandom Files, the series where I take you into the hidden away depths of each and every fandom. Now, considering the fandom in question is nearly 15 years old, let me first explain the basics of Eddsworld, as they changed quite a bit over time. Beginning in 2004, Eddsworld started out as a fun little animated series originally starring the animated counterparts of Ed Gould, Tord Larson, Matt Hargreaves, and Thomas Ridgewell. It only took a couple years of posting animations to both Newgrounds and YouTube for the series to gain a pretty notable following for its time. And with the rapid growth of that following, we come to our first major incident within the fandom. Because as we've seen in previous fandoms centered around living, breathing people, certain obsessive fans do not know when to stop. Now it's 2008, and all of a sudden, in the newest Eddsworld animation, 25 Feet Under the Sea, Tord completely leaves the show. And due to how out of the blue his exit was, most fans just wanted to know why. Well, in actuality, the reason for Tord's departure is probably one of the most infuriating things I've seen any fandom do. To put it simply, with Tord's newfound fame came a boatload of obsessive fans who went as far as to stalk him online. It had gotten so bad that he specifically told Ed to remove his character entirely, resulting in the poorly executed scene we all know about today. However, to everyone's dismay, the fact that Tord left the show as quickly as he did only proved to make everything 10 times worse for him. Now, not only were there still the obsessive fans who stalked Tord for reasons, there were also anti-fans who began harassing him to come back to the show, using any and all means they had at their disposal to do it. Of course, considering Tord is an actual person and not an animated character, this constant harassment and stalking proved to be unbearable, causing the poor guy to erase his presence completely off of the internet. You know, I really will never understand how anti-fans feel like creators are entitled to their every whim and desire, when in reality, it's those fans in particular that end up wounding the very thing they claim to be a fan of. I swear, I may as well call this series the Anti-Fan Files, considering how 90% of the time, they're always the ones who do this crap. Unfortunately though, this wasn't the end of the hell these anti-fans were causing for Tord, because around 6 or 7 years ago, Tord actually had a little YouTube channel of his own. By this point, Tord couldn't even use his real name online in fear of harassment, so initially this channel wasn't found. However, once the creator of Eddsworld, Ed Gould, sadly passed away, 5 days after his death, Tord decided to upload a video paying respects to the legendary animator. Then in that very same video, Tord explained why he even left Eddsworld, talking about all the terrible things anti-fans had done to force him to quit and go into hiding. Now you'd think that with the actual guy explaining the situation, it'd get much better, right? Well, as always, those said anti-fans demonstrated demonstrated just how awful and dense they can be, with them resuming their harassment of Tord both in the comments of that said video and across his now deleted channel, along with any other social media attached to it. The most despicable thing is, in this new wave of harassment, the trash even used Ed's death as a weapon against Tord, saying some things I don't even want to repeat. Due to this, as I'm sure you may have guessed, that said video along with Tord's entire channel has been completely wiped off the face of the internet, with Tord's hiding this time being permanent. The fact that there were actual people out there who thought they took priority over a man memorializing one of his best friends is disgusting. But as time went on, these isolated groups of anti-fans began to grow in number, with Tord only being the start of it all. Fast forward once again to 2016, and through the efforts of Tom, Matt, and all of the talented animators who helped out, Eddsworld continued on and even had its very own finale. With that, you really would think that the aforementioned anti-fans would let up, or at the very least lose interest and move on to other things. Well, to the entire fandom's dismay, that just was not the case. First, let me discuss the entire situation involving Paul and Patrick. For context, Paul was actually a close friend of Ed's, helping him with the show ever since 2006. In fact, Paul was the main animator for quite a few episodes. Patrick, on the other hand, was a pretty notable donator for the Eddsworld Legacy project, appearing alongside Paul's animated counterpart in a few cameos. Now, putting two and two together here, this ended up leading to the infamous Paul x Patrick ship, one that even became so popular that it developed its own little fandom alongside Eddsworld. Usually this wouldn't really be much of a problem since just about every fandom out there has stuff like this, but considering that Paul and Patrick are, yes, actual people, this dumb little ship ended up causing them more problems than they could ever dream of. You see, the big issue isn't even the ship's existence, it's the fact that the good bunch of people who made fan art and fanfictions of it used the real first and last names of both Paul and Patrick. So due to that, instead of the ship remaining on sites like Tumblr, it began to adversely affect both of them in real life. Since with it only getting worse and worse 1 year after Eddsworld had its final episode, Patrick decided to speak out on behalf of himself and Paul. In a Tumblr post that's pretty hard to dig up now, it's truly saddening to see how certain fans of the ship practically ruined the entirety of Eddsworld for the both of them. And it's not like they didn't try to stop it either. Even with Tom calling out certain people who were harassing the both of them due to the ship, it somehow only kept spreading. It was getting to the point where you couldn't even search up their names on Google Images without getting NSFW fan art. Just imagine people giving them a background check. As time went on, the obsessive shippers were literally grabbing for anything they could. Like, take the time Tom sarcastically stated that the ship was canon. Somehow the obsessive shippers were so daft that they took it as fact and spread it even more. Remember, in the case of Paul, he was already married at this point. It had gotten so bad that the both of them had to just completely sever their friendship, solely for the safety of their public image. Much like the case I talked about in the K-pop fandom, they would be having a normal conversation and then all of a sudden, some person would just ask them out of the blue to make out. Patrick would even be on his or his friend's streams, and as soon as at least one obsessive fan found him, the entire chat would be spammed with people asking about the ship. I mean, seriously, how would you feel if you'd previously put hard work into a channel of your own, only to have mountains of people constantly bug you about something you never even wanted a part in? How it's possible that a human being can be so heartless to tarnish what should have been a wonderful part of someone's life is frankly astonishing. If Tord even received a fraction of the crap these guys had to deal with, I'm at least glad he's free of it now. And with Paul, considering he went through everything Patrick did, I cannot even imagine how hard it must be to see something you've dedicated so many years to cause that much turmoil in your life. I can only hope that now the both of them are leading happy, successful lives. Unfortunately, however, it doesn't stop there. Matt and Tom, who put so much effort in keeping Ed's dream alive, were also harassed a fair bit. Take Tom, who had taken the entire blunt of the series onto himself as the director, who while keeping Ed's dream alive was constantly harassed by awful anti-fans. I would go more into detail, but I feel this post from 2017 explains how terribly he's been treated. Or Matt, who while being one of the few original people who still work on Eddsworld through the webcomics and such, has dealt with a similar situation to both Paul and Patrick. Basically, people were not only harassing him, but his actual wife as well, just because she got in the way of their ships. I cannot fully express how furious this makes me. What kind of immature brat would stoop to levels this low? But above all else, let's move on from the awful anti-fans and talk about the amazing side of the fandom. While it has decreased in size as you'd expect, the majority of the fandom is really something and some of the nicest people out there. Not to mention, Eddsworld has led to a lot of money going to charity. The positive impact it's had has been extraordinary. Though now, because I didn't really want to just squeeze it into the middle of the video, I want to talk about the man himself, Ed Gould, because honestly, his level of dedication to not only the series, but the fandom it had created was awe-inspiring. I feel Ed really sets a precedent of how any creator should strive to be like. And for that, here's to you, Ed. May your fantastic legacy live on forever. Oh man, doing research for this video really got rough at points, having to read how exhausted the members of Eddsworld had become. I honestly hope everything has gotten better for all involved. Though anyways, do keep sending me your fandom stories via my Twitter DMs for future episodes of the Fandom Files. I know I haven't been using too much lately, but with me being at the very end of exam season, expect a video very soon containing a bunch of them. And on the topic of the Fandom Files, I have a bit of an update for you all. Basically, after a lot of consideration, I'm deciding to not make this series bi-weekly anymore. Hopefully this won't be too upsetting for any of you, but honestly, I just want to try new things, and also have more time to research and edit these videos at the same time. Of course, the series isn't stopping, it just won't be coming out as frequently. But anyways, don't forget to vote in the iCard at the top right of the video for the next episode of the Fandom Files. You better choose wisely for my sake. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, do subscribe, and today's cool thing of the day is really just everyone who worked on Eddsworld. Like take Thomas Ridgewell, also known for a little channel I doubt you've ever heard about called Tomska, who really deserves a ton of praise for what he did. And Matt Hargreaves, who with Tom handing full control over to him and Ed's family after part 2 of The End went up, is to this day keeping Eddsworld alive as best he can. And finally, to every other person who helped animate or voice act for the show, you all deserve much more praise than you're getting. So that being said, I'm the RPG Monger, and don't forget that each and every one of you are fantastic.